I'm Brophy. I'm from Cole's own brand. I'm the quality manager. I'm a late entry into this. My colleague Jennifer Crawford couldn't make it this morning, so I will be a little bit dependent on the notes, so please bear with me. So my role is across all of the own brand products, monitoring product as it comes into the network. So the subject today is quite pertinent to what my team does on a day-to-day basis. I've been with Coles almost 5 years, and prior to that worked in industry in manufacturing for about 20 years. So I've seen a lot of this across different industries. So we'll jump into it. Today I'm here to talk to you about labelling and the challenges it presents to our industry, and what we can do to prevent the mistakes and protect our customers. So this is a chart that's readily available. You've probably seen it before, and it tracks over the last 10 years the impact of labelling and recalls, and what's the biggest driver of recalls across the industry. The highest number of recalls occurred in 2022, and labelling and allergens were the biggest issue in that time frame. So I guess if you're aware of this within your industry, you can make plans to mitigate the risks. You can have risk assessments which will talk to these risks specifically in your business, and try and manage that as best possible. Understanding that it's not always automation, because smaller businesses may not be able to do that, but you may have to have manual processes. And it's about being aware of when the highest risks may occur within your business, at what time of year, and as you go through your trading year, what are the biggest risk periods, and is there change management as well. The data says that basically we need increased vigilance and regulatory oversight to ensure food safety and compliance across Australia and New Zealand, and we really need to be monitoring this to bring this trend down, because labelling and even globally, labelling and allergies are the biggest driver of recalls, and it can be very, very costly to a business as well. So So in 2023 we had 87 product recalls. So if we think about that for a minute, I worked for 5 years in an own brand manufacturing business in the UK, and we had one near miss in that period. I came into Coles 5 years ago, and I see it every week. So it's actually quite stark when you see it at that level. So it's something that's we've got to really try and drive down, and whether that's manual systems or automated systems. 7 of those 87 were incorrect labelling, and 41 were due to undeclared allergens. So that could be, right product, wrong label, right label, wrong product. Or it could just be an allergen that simply was not picked up in part of the manufacturing when the product was being developed, or you change the supply, haven't done a risk assessment on the supplier, and then all of a sudden we discover that we've got an undeclared allergen. So incorrect labelling is probably the smaller end of it, but allergens, it can crisscross between the two. Conservatively, recall for certain businesses, if it's national, and all that goes with that, it can be up to 5 million. And certainly if we catch it earlier and we can do a withdrawal, it's less costly, but it can be crippling for some businesses if we don't get it right. 240 million is the estimated impact of labelling and allergen inconsistencies or errors on labels across 2023. So there's a lot to go after, and I think it's not just about that, it's also about reputation, brand reputation, and the impact that it has on business that maybe you've grown for 10, 15, 20 years, and one event can have disastrous consequences. So not just for your brand, but for your customers, and ultimately can result in serious public health risks and ultimately death, which it's sad, but that's what we see sometimes when things go wrong. So there's some pretty obvious ones here, but this would be probably on the extreme end of, it's shouting out at you what the issue is. Simply watermelon, sweet corn, or February the 30th on milk, and our onions don't look in great shape in this one here either. But I think what the important point here is, within your business, if you look at certain times of the year, February, a specific one, year end, specific one, that's where we see spikes in these issues. So if you have manual controls, put extra controls in at that point if you know that that's a higher risk point, and you can manage the risk accordingly when you have these changeovers. Training and education is another piece where you may be running night shifts or across weekends, long weekends like we've just had. You may have to call in extra staff, and we see with auditors where we go out to factories and you talk to somebody operating on the line, and they don't really know why they're doing it. So I think it's the explanation of why, getting that across to the team, really building that knowledge within the team of the importance of checking and why we do those checks. Just move to the next slide. So yeah, biggest causes of concern was rolls and recalls. Allergens really not being managed in the business. Production scheduling, are we changing the schedule which is designed to manage allergens, and then are we responding to that with appropriate cleans? Line clearance, control and check and record, check records. So have we got the right line clearance? Have we got the packaging that's out on the line removed into a safe box or into a safe room, away from somebody making an error just on the cuff, trying to do the right thing, pick up the wrong roll of labels and put it on. And if you don't have the right systems in place to catch that, our experience is that it will end up in a DC and out on the shelf. Labels not controlled. Again, we ask for this within CFMSR, the Coles Food Manufacturing Standard. We ask for labels to be controlled in a restricted area. People wonder why. And it's just that, to be able to release labels out to the line and bring it back in so it can be secure, and you're reducing the risk of any inadvertent changeovers. And that return must be completed and signed in and out, so there's people taking responsibility for that, and they know what the responsibility is, and then the consequences, if things go wrong, what the consequences are. Real-time printing can also be a risk if there's a change to a program and we haven't got change control in place. We just need to make sure there's a sign off on that in part of the process. Another area is rework. So if we're bringing back, then this is probably more around allergens, if we're bringing back around rework, how do we manage that within the business as well to ensure that there's no risk to cross-contamination? I mentioned staff, that's one probably of the biggest risks, and we like to really, when we're on the factory floor, go out and probe that to understand the level of knowledge and understanding of why, because that's where we see the biggest failures at somebody applying the wrong label. But also, I think when there's a correction made, it's like, let's put in another check. It generally doesn't work. Put the right focus on the checks, put the right people trained on the checks, and then you'll get the right result. Putting in another layer does not really solve the problem. We've seen that time and time again. So we've got other, before you get into the automation, you've got other kind of tools that you can use in terms of watermarks and pallet label checks. So we've got full checking through, and watermarks is a clever one. You'll see it on. It's basically like imprinted into the barcode, and it'll identify that label. There might be some very similar labels, let's say 1 litre milk, 2 litre milk, 3 litre milk, and they just got a little 3 in the barcode. So it helps a visual check for the operator on the line to be able to see, okay, that's the right label. That's I know I'm using the right one. So, and then to be able to sign that off. So you've got a kind of a check against that. So yeah, I can't really overemphasize the importance of training and understanding of allergens and the risk in the business, because ultimately the consequences are severe if we don't get it right. And yeah, when quality control lapses, then it does result in disastrous consequences. So what can we do about it? From a progress in automation, I've worked with vision systems in the past. You've got to be able to manage the changeover. You've got to be able to manage version control, and they can deliver great results. But at the same time, you've still got to have processes and systems in place to manage change within the business as you go from a new product or a new version of a label. And I think we've seen changes to in the peel recently, and there'll be a lot of label changes coming on the back of that. So what have we got in place over the next through that transition period to manage change on labels? Our brand reputation, I think you mentioned I'll just go back to other systems we've got in place, is track and trace. So if something does go wrong, how do you minimize the risk? You can have serialization or track and trace on systems to be able to identify the batch quantity down to a minimal amount. We see where we don't have that, we end up having to withdraw lots and lots of product, and it's very costly. It's not good for the environment, and it's a very broad brush. So being able to get much more specific with how and when we withdraw, when we have to do that, I think is really, really helpful. So some of those systems can help to reduce that risk and that cost if it does happen. I guess the last point really is around regulatory compliance. So it might not just be allergens, it could be around weights, measures, controls. I have a team that check products coming into our network every day, and we pick this up every week. We pick up issues on labels coming in every week, whether it be a trade label or a retail label. So for us, it points to systematic failure. So I think we've got to make sure that everything that's leaving our premises is meeting the labelling requirements, and have the checks and balances in place to be able to stand over that, and it is what it says on the tin, basically, and be able to be confident that we've got the right product in the right packaging. And I think that's it on the slides. Thank you very much.